Boba Love by Waifukou. Summary. Working at his uncle's Jasmine Dragon Cafe was really only supposed to be a side gig to help pay for random things through college. Zuko doesn't have time to waste anymore, just sitting behind the register and staring at the ceiling. However, he soon changes his mind when he meets Katara, a friendly regular customer who treats him more than an employee. If the only way to get to know the lady is by taking more shifts, Zuko will find a way to make it work. Chapter 1. First Meeting. Zuko sighed. Normally, he'd be brooding at the fact that it was another shift, another boring day, working at his uncle's Jasmine Dragon Cafe, but no, this was way worse. This entire week, his uncle scheduled him to work full-time. Something about getting him out of the house more and talking to cute girls, whatever it was, Zuko was pissed. But Uncle, he had said, I'm busy with college things. I can't waste time dwindling my fingers and listening to your stupid Chinese tunes in the cafe. I have work that's due. Besides, you have other employees that definitely needs the money more than I do. Why me? Iroh just shook his head, smiling as if his college grades were a joke. Zuko, the Jasmine Dragon Cafe is more than that. It's a safe space. It's where anyone can come in and enjoy delicious tea and biscuits. Unfortunately, Jin and Ji are out this week, which is great. More time for the two of us. Zuko grinded his teeth at his uncle's stupid flowery smile plastered all over his face. He was fuming. Even after his charming speech on the importance of bonding time between an uncle and nephew, Zuko was not swayed. He had really been looking forward to completing his work in the library, catching up on the uncompleted quests of video games waiting for him in the gaming room, stuffing his face with the greasy chicken food on the student campus, and feeding the turtle ducks that swarmed his campus's ponds. But none of that mattered anymore. It was too late now. Here he was, sitting behind the marble counter of the cafe in between their single cash register and a transparent glass shelf filled with decorated homemade cookies. Working at the Jasmine Dragon Cafe was just supposed to be a side thing, something to make extra money for textbooks or take out meals. He told his uncle that it was nothing more than that, nothing permanent, and he would quit it once he got a better job. But months passed, then a few years, and lo and behold, Zuko remained working at the cafe every other weekend. However, it wasn't always terrible. Toist. Zuko was sincerely thankful his uncle gave him a job, and the shop has really transformed over the years. In the past, the cafe was in a suspicious location, and a cramped, dingy area where the AC would sometimes work when it wanted, but it made summers there unbearable. They would also get questionable customers in the evenings that made Zuko wish he took more self-defense classes. Thanks to his uncle's creations and experiments with tea, he was able to get enough funding for a better spot in the city. Finally, the sign was remodeled and properly hung this time. Before it was hanging by only a couple of lucky nails, and glowed whenever hours got dark. The floor of the shop was made out of pale wood, and the walls were a lovely shade of lime green. Now they were able to purchase decent furniture. The chairs and tables were white marble and rimmed with gold lining. Dainty small vases of fake flowers decorated the tops of the circular tables, and varying types of cactuses surrounded the cafe. Everything in the shop was carefully thought out and had meaning to his uncle's life. Thanks to his upgrade, the cafe's popularity skyrocketed, and it got busy enough where Uncle had to hire more employees. No longer was it just the two of them, but now 4. If Uncle just hired more, he would not have the problem of relying on him so much. Zuko couldn't help but think it was just an excuse to continue spending more time with him. If only he took up that offer of becoming a manager at his university's gaming club, maybe he could still apply. A jingle at the door drew his attention to the figure entering. He watched as a tan girl with long, wavy brown hair walked in. She had a cropped jean jacket on, paired with a plain black shirt tucked into a flowy white skirt. Welcome to Jasmine Dragon Cafe. Zuko spoke, slightly straightening his posture and running a hand through his shaggy black hair. Despite not wanting to be here, He did want to look slightly presentable to customers. Not that the customer being a somewhat attractive girl had anything to do with it. It was for his pride, of course, as well for the sake of the customer potentially coming back and giving favorable reviews. The female turned her gaze to the counter, giving a small grin at the boy. "Hello, you've got a beautiful place here. This is my first time spotting this cute cafe, and I always walk this route." "Thanks. I'm sure the owner will appreciate your compliment. We sometimes can be overlooked with all the other exciting restaurants beside us." The girl offered another grin, making Zuko awkwardly try to reciprocate, back by quivering his lips upward. However, his lips only went halfway up. Gah, his smiles were a travesty. It was a good thing she missed it. "So," the female looked up over Zuko's head, scanning the menu of anything that piqued the girl's interest. He waited for her response. "Since it's my first time here, I really don't know what's good or not. Got any suggestions?" Zuko pulled out a laminated menu of their shop from behind the counter. "Right here, the brown sugar tea. Very popular if you enjoy sweet thing. I recommend getting the lychee cubes with it." He pointed at another item. "This one, any of the smoothie flavors but especially the taro and mango, are customers' first pick. The boba inside of it, though, is a hit or miss." The female's azure eyes twinkled, looking at all the choices. Luckily, there was no one else but her in the cafe, so he didn't feel his habitual impatient self, where he would tap his foot in an odd pattern or frequently look up and down at a customer to show when we're taking too long. He had the time to observe her first reactions of taking in everything of the place, and he had to admit they were kinda adorable. He watched as she bit her lip, trying to decide, deep in thought. Maybe it was subconscious or not. She shifted her balance to one foot or the other, and her eyes lingered on an option way too long. The girl scanned the menu one last time, her facial expression deadly serious, which genuinely made Zuko half smile at her seriousness towards it. "I think I'll go with the brown sugar tea, but no lychee cubes in it, and make it a large." "Excellent choice," Zuko spoke, ringing that up on the register. "That'll be $5.23. "Thank you." She looked from his eyes to his chest, where his lamented name tag twinkled in the sun with the glass windows. She smiled when she got what she was looking for, and spoke while handing him money. "Zuko, what a nice name. Thanks for all the help." Zuko looked at her, confused. He was taken back by her kindness. It's rare to see customers use your name, or being actually grateful for your services. He realized he was simply staring at her for a few seconds, causing the air or moment they were having to go stale and uncomfortable, as she looked at now with a questionable face. No problem." "Anytime." Zuko hastily grabbed her money, hoping his sweaty palms didn't touch hers. He opened up the cash register with unpredicted force, causing it to loudly clank open. "Ahaha, this thing," he said awkwardly, giving back her change carefully to not let any coins slip out. She simply grinned at him again, paying no attention to the noise. With her change, the girl slid the remainder of it into the tip charge. Zuko again was thrown back by her kindness. It was pleasant, a bit unsettling, and a very new sight to adjust to. Regular customers who were teenagers and likely college students like himself seldom gave tips unless they were on a date trying to impress the girl or guy, or simply trying to get rid of coins. The ones who often tipped the most were older, middle-aged customers. Zuko turned around to prepare her drink, mixing in the ingredients and measuring the brown sugar. He turned his head over his shoulder to see the female sitting down at a table, browsing her phone, openly smiling, probably looking at a message from her boyfriend. Pretty, nice girls like her were never single for long. Why did it matter to him anyway? This was probably the first and last time she came by. Something about that made him feel somewhat down at thought of potentially never seeing her again. But that feeling quickly faded as he turned on the blender, the ice crushing easily and clearing his mind. So he turned off the machine, poured the blended mixture into a large plastic cup, and snapped a durable lid on top of it. 1 large brown tea. The girl perked up at her drink and got up from the table, shuffling up and putting her phone away. "Thank you," she said. Zuko nodded, watching the female grab a metal straw from her brown crossover body bag. He watched as she plucked it in, took a sip, and her eyes sparkled in delight. This is delicious. Thanks for the recommendation," she said, happily showing him a similar smile to the one she gave at her phone, which made Zuko's chest puff up a bit at the compliment. Years of practice and learning from his uncle paid off. "Any time," he said, keeping his gaze on her. "Thanks again for everything. I appreciate it," she said, her back already turning to head to the entrance of the cafe. "Have a nice day." "Come back soon," he called out lamely. Maybe his uncle was right. Maybe this week working at the cafe wouldn't be so bad. Of course, it helped that a cute girl brightened up the start of his week. Zuko, for once, was excited and somewhat curious about what the rest of his week brought. The boy would never admit to anyone that he hopefully wished to see another appearance from the girl and learn her name. Ndoru. Chapter 2. Proper Introduction. Unfortunately, the female customer didn't return that week. Zuko was hardly surprised, but it did sour his mood. This is what happens whenever he gets optimistic. It just made him want to sulk more. Now that his assignments were out of the way, and with Uncle Iroh's other employees on call, Zuko made his way to the university's gaming center to enjoy the remainder of his weekend. Upon entering, he could smell the faint scent of body odor, guys raging at their computers, and ramen being cooked in the corner where the microwave was. There were various stations set up to pick your game of the choosing on PC, the television, ping pong, or board games. Zuko stalked his way over to a row of empty PCS and sat himself in the farthest seat. Typing in the password, he set off to finally finish his online quests. After a few hours of farming for tools to level up his character, Zuko took off his headset and stretched in his seat. By now, the game room was completely flooded. Almost every PC was taken, along with all the tables being filled with students, loudly exclaiming they were going to win. He yawned. Maybe he should move on to another game. Possibly a horror one? Zuko scanned the options on the computer when another group of students was entering the room. "Wow, this place is so cool, isn't it? I love it here. Best place to kill time in between classes," another guy exclaimed, hovering over an empty ping-pong table. "Come on, Aang. I challenge you to witness my sick ping-pong skills." "You're on, Sokka." "Guys, why are we here? We promised we would meet Suki and Toph over by the benches." A familiar voice inquired that made Zuko instantly pop his head up from the rows of computers. When he saw the female talking, the male widened his eyes. It was her, that cute customer from his uncle's shop a week ago. His brown eyes lit up at the sight of her. Just for good measure, Zuko rubbed his eyes again to make sure he wasn't seeing things because of his lack of sleep. She had on a fitting pair of jeans and a crop top. Among all the girls here, something about her stood out. Maybe it was her natural beauty. Zuko gulped. He looked down at his appearance. Oh shit. He was wearing the graphic tee that has years' worth of stains. At least he wore a decent pair of jeans without any accidental rips in them. "Katara, I'm sure the girls will understand. Now watch me destroy Aang in this game." He watched as the female rolled her eyes. "Whatever. I'm going to the benches. Text me when you're done." The bald kid with the red beanie waved goodbye, losing his focus momentarily, which ended making him lose. The other male by the name of Sokka cheered loudly, while the bald kid demanded a rematch. Zuko switched his gaze to Katara, who already was at the door, preparing to leave. Who knew whenever he would see her again? This could be his chance to properly introduce himself. Surely this wasn't a coincidence. In the whole city, out of all the other colleges, She went to the same university as him. She had shown him such kindness. It would only be good manners, according to his Uncle Iroh, to properly introduce himself to Katara for showing generosity. Snatching his headset off, Zuko raced to catch up to the girl. Flinging the door open, he cursed when he saw her long brown hair flip behind her shoulder and disappear into a corner. With a huff, he jogged as no one really runs in university to shorten the distance. Exiting the building, he saw her on the green fields and the hordes of students were walking so goddamn slow, so Zuko decided to screw it and dashed over the fields. He skidded to a stop when the girl swung her head and gasped when she was eye to eye with the male. Azure eyes met with amber eyes. He realized how close he was to her and backed up a bit to allow some space. Breathless, Zuko gulped and awkwardly waved. "Hey!" Oh God, he prayed to the sun gods that he didn't have anything strong for lunch. Did he even brush his teeth this morning? Hi? Katara said with a raised eyebrow. "Oh, do you not remember me?" Zuko asked, rubbing the backside of his head. "Wait!" Katara's eyes lit up, which made Zuko break out into a small grin. "Did we have chemistry 2 together? It was a great class, don't you think?" "No, we didn't have chemistry 2 together. I don't think we've had any classes together, in fact," Zuko said, letting out a forced laugh. What was he thinking? He should make up an excuse now and leave before he embarrasses himself any further. Realization hit the girl at the last second. "Oh, you're that guy from the Jasmine Dragon Cafe. Zuko, right?" Katara said, placing her fist into the palm of her left hand. "Sorry, my memory tends to be all over the place, memorizing various subjects for my classes. What are you doing here? Are you doing a delivery?" "Ah, not quite." She tilted her head. "Oh, are you here for the soccer game? My gang was just about to head there. You could join us if you'd like." "Technically, I go here." "What? Really? That's crazy. What are the odds? I can't even begin to say how much I enjoyed that tea you made me. It was amazing, and my friends and I have visited a plethora of tea shops. Next time, I'll bring them in. Oh, my name is Katara, by the way. Sorry, I tend to ramble." She let out a small laugh, followed by a sheepish smile. Zuko grinned archly. "No, it's completely fine. You already know my name, but it's Zuko, and that'd be great if your friends came over. My uncle, who happens to be the owner of the shop, is all for more guests." Katara couldn't help but gawk. "Your uncle owns that place? That's amazing." "Thanks. It does have its perks, getting free food, and taste testing new products." Chapter 3, Impromptu Study Date. Unfortunately, Zuko doesn't coincidentally bump into Katara anymore, nor does she make a surprise visit at the cafe. It likely could have something to do with it being exam week approaching, which is what Zuko tries telling himself. Twirling a mechanical pencil in his hand, Zuko stares aimlessly at whatever object his eyes meet and zones out. He knows he has important reading and reviewing to do, as the expensive textbook sits below him on the table, but he cannot seem to concentrate. A hand interrupts his daze, and he watches as his uncle sets down a plate of unfamiliar Chinese cookies in front of him. "I thought you could use a snack." He wasn't hungry, but Zuko has nothing better to do. He eats it anyway to please his uncle, who is standing, waiting and staring at him. "Wow, this is pretty good. A new recipe of yours." Iroh smiles, pleased. "Yes, something on the sweet side, but I still have a few other test runs to sample out later today." Zuko nods off, clicking his mechanical pencil on the table. "And you, my dear nephew, have some studying to do." Zuko is about to agree, but watches in surprise as his uncle sweeps off all his belongings into his black backpack. "Uncle, what are you doing?" "I'm studying here." "No, you aren't. You're procrastinating. I'm not sure what is gnawing at your mind these days, my dear nephew, but you need to find a new place to study. As much as I love your presence here, I want you to succeed in school. Now go! Zuko is mercilessly shoved his backpack in his arms. Along with being pushed out of the cafe's entrance, he tries to stand his ground by firmly placing his feet on the floor, but skids. My goodness, his uncle has a grip. It shouldn't surprise Zuko since he is a baker, and anyone who makes food needs a surprisingly ample amount of arm power. But it is still surprising to Zuko that his elder uncle is this strong. But uncle, love you, nephew. Stop by later to try out more of my cookies. And with that, Zuko watches as the cafe's door gently shut in front of his face. Well, now that he has been kicked out of his usual studying area, Zuko examines his options of where to go now, because he actually should be reviewing if he wants to pass his calculus class. There is the gaming center where he normally resides, but it is hardly ever quiet in there, as well as the food court, which he is sure will be another distraction waiting for him. He kicks a pebble and without thinking walks the trail to his university. A group of students chatting brought him out of his thoughts, and Zuko watches them heading to the large building of their library. Why didn't he think of going to the library? Oh, because he detested how students merely go there to look as if they're doing work, when in reality, they never are. Zuko checked to see if he brought his headphones, searching frantically in the pocket of jeans, and feeling the familiar black cord tugged it out to plug it into his phone, before walking into the grand room. First floor was always busy. Without thinking, he walked the stairs to whichever floor had the least amount of people. Started silently humming to the rock song. Zuko perked up, seeing how lonely the 7th floor was. Clearly, it needed company, and Zuko was prepared to enjoy the absolute silence while he practiced the shit out of math problems. After a few hours of intense rock and guitar solos, and the lead of his mechanical pencil rapidly shrinking, 3 hours passed. Zuko decided to remove his earbuds to allow his lobes some air, and stretched from his slouched position. Minor bones cracked as he twisted his back. When he was about to relieve tension from his neck, Zuko nearly bolts, finally noticing Katara across from him on the table. Katara looks up from her notebook at the sudden motion and offers a small smile. Hey, finally taking a break? Katara, what are you doing here? Zuko asks, calming down his racing heart and frizzy hair. Did he bother combing it today? Katara gives him a funny look. I'm studying, just like you. This is the library. In his mind, Zuko slammed his head on the table. He let out a small, forced laugh. You're right. What I meant was, here, at this table with me. God, he hoped that didn't come out weird. Thankfully it didn't, because Katara just sat up straighter and pondered briefly. Well, considering how noisy the first 3 flowers and the lack of chairs in the others, this floor seemed the most spacious and serene for studying. I just happened to have noticed you, and thought why not to join you. You were quite occupied. I didn't want to interrupt you. Katara flashed him a small smile. Zuko could feel the tips of his ears turning red. She has a lovely smile. Thanks. What are you studying? Oh! Katara shoves her large textbook forward. Preparing for my psychology exam tomorrow. I'm feeling fairly confident after breathing in every word the past 72 hours. I'm sure you'll do great. I'm assuming your major is something health-related? Zuko inquired, leaning his elbows on the table and lean frame forward. There was a distance between the two of them due to the table, and Zuko wanted to respect other students' wishes for silence, this high up a library floor. Katara took note of his stance and reciprocated, bending her frame on the wooden object. You assume right. I'm pre-med. Yourself? Katara asked in a hushed manner that Zuko found adorable. Engineering. I've heard that anything with more than 2 biology classes is difficult. Is it true? Pre-med is not an easy pathway, that's for sure. If I wasn't such a night owl, I'd probably never get all my assignments done. Katara giggles at the end, resulting in Zuko flashing her a grin. Yeah? The type of student to pull all-nighters. Zuko couldn't relate. He was the complete opposite. Katara nodded. I'm either volunteering after my lectures are done, or hanging with my friends during the day. I'm not sure why, but having the moon reflect on my notes, and the cricket chirping in the background, I find it best to write and review. Oh gosh, that was poetic and beautiful. But I've always done my work best when the sun and weather is at its warmest. Haha, the minute I hear crickets chirping, well, I wouldn't since I'm likely already asleep. Zuko snorted. He was an early sleeper and riser. It was likely because of his uncle's ways rubbing off on him at a young age. Another giggle escaped Katara's lips. That sounds like something my brother would say, except he never does work. Such a procrastinator. Zuko was about to retort on his relationship with his elder sister when he heard a low rumbling sound. He raised an eyebrow and took notice at the flushed expression on Katara's face. "Did you have dinner yet?" Katara shook her head. "No, I also might have skipped lunch. Now I lost track of time again and missed another meal. I should probably get going and ensure my brother has ate too." Zuko blinked and watched Katara gracefully get up and pack her belongings. Rushed, Zuko did as well, because he wanted to walk out with her and prolong their conversation as much as possible. Before slamming his binder in his backpack, he heard a crinkle move from the motion of himself and noticed a tidy wrapping of his uncle's cookies at the bottom of his bag. Coughing into his arm, Zuko slung his backpack over his shoulder and waited for Katara to finish. Once she gave him another one of those soft smiles that Zuko couldn't help but feel slightly flustered at. Sure, he had experiences with girls in the past, but not enough to care or try as much as he felt with Katara. Even if they were to just be friends, Zuko didn't want to screw that up. Timo. Katara didn't make him anxious or blank out at small talk, and she seemed the type of person not to judge a person's quirks. Maybe that was why he liked her company so much. Her presence relaxed him. "Are you heading out too?" I figured to grab a bite as well. But I don't think you've ever tried any of my uncle's cafe treats, by the way, have you? My uncle is preparing these new cookies, and I'm sure he'd love your thoughts on it." Zuko offered the wrapped treat with an awkward smile. "Inga." Katara widened her eyes at the offer and burst out into a wide grin. "Oh, Zuko, this is amazing. And oh my gosh, the design around the cookie is adorable. I can't believe I'm lucky to try these before anyone else did." Zuko was about to respond, but stopped and stared when she bit into the cookie and burst into another fit of happiness, oozing about how delicious the cookie was and how it melts in your mouth. Zuko couldn't help but smile fondly at her expressions. Katara stopped and blushed after finishing the treats, wiping the crumbs away. "Sorry, I got carried away. It was that exquisite. I loved the texture and, well, everything about it. I appreciate it. I've never seen someone so passionate about taste testing my uncle's stuff." Zuko scratched the back of his head, extremely content with seeing so many different sides of Katara today. The two walked out of the library, Zuko sharing more of his uncle's creations while Katara gushed about it. He learned that Katara enjoys baking and considers it one of her hobbies, along with cooking. Apparently, Katara is the one that cooks for her family, since her mother was always busy working at a young age. Zuko stopped in the middle of the sidewalk. He paused, turning to Katara. "I'm going to stop by my uncle's cafe again, so I'm heading this way. You?" "Oh, I think I'll wait for my brother to drive me back home. I'm really glad I bumped into you, Zuko." Katara faltered, opening her mouth, then closing it and opening it again. Zuko blinked, recognizing that action quickly, because it's something he always did too often, when he wanted to ask something but couldn't muster the courage. He hopefully made an expression of encouragement for her to continue. She let out a shaky breath. "After exams are done, I bet you'll be working at your uncle's cafe, right?" "Yeah, I believe so. I don't think I've made plans with my family or anyone anytime soon. Katara smiled shyly. Cool. I think I'll visit if you'll be there. Zuko felt his entire face lit up red, trying to play it cool. He brought the back of his hand to his face to conceal the raging heat radiating from his cheeks. I look forward to seeing you then. So do I. Good luck on exams. Katara waved before whipping her body around, her long, curly brown hair following with her. As soon as Zuko returned to his uncle's cafe, Iroh was very confused by his nephew's sudden cheery mood that night, as well as the rest of the week. He also found it peculiar when Zuko began to cross out the days on the calendar, something his nephew has never done before. It was as if he was counting down something. Iroh nearly spit out his tea when his nephew then asked to be scheduled more after his semester ended. Says he. Before Katara could respond, a faint voice called her in the background. Come on, Katara. The game is starting. Let's grab some seats. Zuko looked up to see two girls, one with black hair lazily into a bun, and the other with short brown hair fanatically moving their hands. All right, coming, she yelled back. Turning her head to face Zuko, she gave him a wave. I'm afraid those are my impatient friends waiting for me. Wouldn't want them to wait any longer, or else who knows what they'll do. I'll see you around. Definitely. Enjoy the game. Katara gave one last smile before sprinting up to her female companions and walking over to the stadium. As soon as she exited his peripheral vision, Zuko turned around and felt the tips of his ears turn a warm shade of pink. He'd tap his toes if he was anyone else but Zuko, settled on shyly smiling to himself and returning to the gaming station to text his uncle that he'd be available to take on more shifts the following week. Chapter 4. Winter Break. Last week, Zuko helped his uncle bring out boxes and hang up winter-esque decorations around the front and inside of the shop. Instead of the usual cherry blossoms, white lotuses, and cactus, now it was dainty white snowmen, snowflakes, and snow-tipped pine cones. Even the table's ornamentation was changed to miniature oak trees, with lights hung around it and a petite reindeer beside it. Zuko had to admit it actually was quite cute. However, this weather, very unattractive. He shivered, grabbing the ends of his red cord jacket and board collar. Did we bother turning on the heater in here? We did, but Iroh doesn't want it too hot, or else some of his desserts might melt. Why don't you grab yourself a cup of tea? You know this is a tea shop, right? Jin asked with a tone Zuko associated akin to cheekiness. He could not stand how sassy she got with him sometimes. Zuko narrowed his eyes at his only female co-worker. When she first joined, his uncle had the assumption that Zuko was lonely and needed a lady friend, so he purposefully sent them up on similar schedules in the evening to close the shops and leave him no choice but to walk her home. Then there was the time his uncle also accidentally sent them out on a date. It was honestly just a grocery shopping trip. But God, was that awkward. Zuko cringed at how reactive he was to his uncle. When he discovered his secret intentions, he erupted at him like a volcano. Don't get him wrong, Jin wasn't awful company, but she was far too brazen for his liking. She was also very pushy, the type of girl that doesn't mind jumping right into a relationship while barely knowing someone because they felt a spark. It likely had to do with her being 2 years younger than him, which was also another reason for Zuko to decline her offers. Of course, Jin took it well. Instead of flirtatious attempts, they were now replaced with quick, sassy remarks that have too many times gone under his skin. Like this one. Yes, I'm very aware that this is a tea shop, but I don't want any. Jin shrugged. Suit yourself, nerd. Zuko watched the girl walk away, swinging open the doors to the back of the store. He blew at his hands, rubbing them together. So once... It was now the second week of winter break. He passed the fall semester with ease, of course. His calculus exam had him sweating for a minute, if he would be able to pull a good grade on it. But thankfully, his professor gave out an extra credit assignment. With a blink of an eye, It all ended for everyone, and the student body was cheering for their well-deserved vacations. However, Zuko didn't care, because only a certain someone occupied his mind, and he was doing a poor job of concealing his expressions when Katara came into the picture. Even his uncle had taken notice, and Zuko was running out of excuses to satiate the old man's curiosity. Zuko felt a ping in his phone. He looked up and saw two couples were seated in the cafe, chatting quietly and sharing a small meal. No one needed his help currently, and this was around the hour where customers seldom came. I think his uncle wouldn't mind if he broke the rules and peeked at the message. Annoying. Dad wants us to return home to spend time with him and Mom. I'm free next week. Let's travel together? Zuko, this is weird. You never ask me to do things with you. You literally tell me all the time you'd rather gouge your eyes out. Annoying. Zuko, but I told you this when we were in high school, and you probably were pissing me off. As you always do. Anyway, it's more cost-efficient if we drove together. Zuko, yes, but if that means 4 hours of hearing you chew my ear out on how slow of a driver I am, I'll pass. Annoying. Would you reconsider if I told you I won't? Zuko, all right. What's going on? You're being oddly nice. Did Dad bribe you with money for us to come home together? Zuko, I'm going to take your silence as a yes, Azula. Annoying. How else is a girl going to make some money? Zuko, getting a job? Annoying. That's what losers like you do. Smart girls like me find other ways. Zuko, God, I can't anymore with you, Azula. I'm not even going to ask about the implications on that. I'll have to let Uncle know when I'm leaving. Annoying. K. Zuko rolled his eyes, always feeling mentally exhausted after dealing with his younger sister, even if it was just a virtual reaction. He liked Azula to an extent, but she had a talent for getting on his nerves, and wiggling her way to make Dad stand on her side more than him must be the ability of being the youngest and a girl. Jin re-entered, opening the doors, and Zuko commented how he needed to readjust the heater, which Jin made another snarky comment about. He walked over to the walls, checked out the temperature, made a face, and tapped some buttons before going back behind his station at the cashier. Zuko pauses when he hears a familiar feminine voice. In fact, it sounds strikingly similar to Katara. He could feel his heart skip a beat, and his posture tense up at the idea. He's been waiting, hoping, counting, praying on her statement that she'd visit if he was here. It's been his single motivation for finishing school and coming into work during this abominable weather. He peeks his head outside and watches in horror to witness Jin talking to Katara. There was all the reason to panic right now. What could she possibly be telling her? Zuko was now regretting all the things he said just to spite her. With all the nonchalance he could muster, Zuko strolled out from the doors, just in time to catch a whiff of the conversation. No wonder Dreamboy kept looking at the door. It was because of you. Jin let out a mischievous laugh. Zuko didn't dare to face Katara yet, dreading if her expression would be one he didn't like. He glared at Jin, who smirked at his reappearance, not regretting her comment. Jin, wow! I think Yoro is calling you in the back. Zuko spoke with as much iron while giving her the most menacing look. With a coy smile, Jin responded, Sure he is. Instead of heading out, Jin moved away from the cashier and purposefully bumped into Zuko's shoulder for further annoyance. And it works, as she heads to the other counter to wipe it. Ensuring Jin's back is facing him, Zuko turns toward Katara, who is waiting for him with a grin on her face. Zuko scratches his cheek. Hey, sorry, I was adjusting the temperature in the back. Katara waved in the air. No, you're fine. I totally get it. I love what you and your uncle did with the place. Katara openly gawked at how festive the cafe was decorated for the cold season. Winter is my favorite season. Zuko couldn't help but snort. I'm beginning to think we may be polar opposites. You like the moon. I like the sun. You enjoy winter. I prefer summer. What else could we possibly disagree on? Katara dramatically put a finger to her lip in a pensive manner. Zuko cracked a smile. Well, I'm sure I could come up with a few things, but I'm afraid I didn't come here to see to fight. Tell me how you did on exams. The door jingling interrupted Zuko's response, reminding him he's still at work. Katara is prompted as well as she gives him an apologetic look. Tell me after your shift is over? Zuko widens his eyes in shock. I'll be closing tonight. I don't want you to wait that long. Come back tomorrow. I'm only working in the morning. I'll treat you to lunch. I can't tomorrow. I promised my brother's girlfriend I'd help her prepare for her dance recital. It's fine. I'm willing to wait. I'll just order some lemon tea and read something. Katara responded coolly, with one of those Watt grins that made Zuko a bit breathless. All right, but the tea is on me okay? Katara was ready to protest, but stopped when the customer's discussion on their orders heightened in volume. Not wanting to hold up the line, she glared at Zuko, having no choice to accept. He watched as she seated herself in one of the available tables. The customer after her redirected his attention, and Zuko faithfully took their requests, his usual brooding mood taking a turn for the opposite that made the patron put in a tip. Tapping Jin's shoulder, he rattled off instructions and specifics of each demand. Zuko moved to begin working on Katara's lemon tea, carefully preparing it. Jin glanced at him on the side as she was breaking some ice. She's cute. How did you manage to get her? It's none of your business, but she's just a friend. For now, I bet, Jin retorted with a smirk. Zuko glared, not appreciating her implications. Oh, relax, hothead. I wonder how you get cold so easily when you get riled up just as fast. How can I not tease you? Out of the goodness of my heart, I can cover for you tonight and make some excuse for Iroh to score a few extra hours on your date with your friend. Zuko stilled. He was not expecting Jin to say that. The corner of his brown eyes searched for a hint of deceit. What's in it for you? Jin shrugged. I'm just a nice co-worker. What can I say? Cut the crap. Tell me what you want. Sticking her tongue out, Jin responds. Convince Iroh for a raise these last few months. Oh, don't give me that look. A girl's got to do some Christmas shopping. The thought of persuading his uncle to give Jin a few extra dollars would not be a problem. His uncle was a naturally giving person, extremely lenient towards his employees. Jin's shallow reason just made him want to firmly decline, yet thinking of Katara having to stick around those 4 hours to talk with him made Zuko reevaluate. Fine, but don't expect any special treatment from me just because you're doing this. Shaking liquids in a bottle, Jin smiled. Of course not. Zuko glared menacingly again before snapping on a lid to the cup. Removing his apron, he made his way to the table Katara was seated at. She looked away from her phone. Oh, is my tea ready? I must have zoned out when you called me. Reaching for the drink, Zuko gently handed it to her to ensure her fingers wouldn't get burned. No, actually, I was able to get off just now. It shouldn't get busy this late. Want to take a stroll? He could tell Katara had questions as concernment decorated her face, which he was prepared to answer, but she didn't. Instead, she got up, softened the ruffles from her peacoat, and turned to the door. Sure, let's go. Zuko opens the door, the bell at the top signaling their leave, and is attacked by harsh winds and specks of snow in his face. He is about to make a comment when Katara sighs happily at the sensation. He was so distraught earlier that he failed to notice how adorable Katara looked. In her navy peacoat, with a white scarf perched around her neck, he watched as Katara marveled in the scenery in her knee-high black boots. For some reason, Zuko couldn't help but believe the style suited her. Are you glad the semester is over? Katara scoffed. Are you kidding me? I'm always glad. Even if it's a brief and short-lived break, everyone needs to catch their breath. Zuko hummed in agreement. The two lapsed in a comfortable silence. Eventually, His uncle's shop faded in the background as well as everything else. Benches, trash cans, the road, cracks in the sidewalk were engulfed in rich snow. Snow reminded him of soft childhood memories when he would visit his uncle to make endless cookies. Iro would let him pour the flour in the bowl, knowing every time he would make a big mess. The flour spiraling everywhere in the kitchen was the first snow Zuko witnessed. It's heavenly, isn't it? Zuko turns to Katara, staring at her. It is. Sorry, I couldn't come sooner. This season is always a hectic time for me. I was always going to visit you, no matter what. Why did she have to say things like that? Was she trying to give me a heart attack? Or make his face combust? Like, seriously, he was thankful it was nighttime to hide his scarlet face. Thank you. I didn't doubt you would come. In fact, it means a lot. Katara shot him a grin. Of course. You even got me a Christmas present. What? That's nothing, he continues. The real present here is you willing to spend time with me. I appreciate your effort more than ever. Katara's steps paused, making Zuko tense up and stop as well. He wondered if what he said came out the wrong way. It wouldn't be the first time his words and actions were misinterpreted. He hates to admit that, surprisingly, there are a handful of people's opinions Zuko cares about when it comes to himself. Katara was definitely one of them. She walks over to Zuko, who stiffens at their proximity. Zuko realizes that Katara's eyes are brighter than any jewels he's seen in his mother's collection, and notices tiny freckles adore her nose to her cheeks. She smiles reassuringly, pulling off her cashmere scarf away from her neck to rearrange it around his shoulders. She has to stand on her tiptoes to reach them. Zuko would bend down to make it easier for her, but he is still processing the current events unfolding right now. I hope this will suffice as a present for the tea and this lovely walk. I hope you have a great New Year, Zuko, and we can spend the next year getting to know each other more. 3 weeks later. Mom, Zuko is being weird. He's for once not being pissy and is actually being nice to me. Make it stop, Azula complained, snatching an apple from the basket placed on their dining table. Ursa twinkled at her young daughter. With a flick of her wrist, Ursa turned off the faucet, halting her washing. I'm afraid his mood isn't going to go away anytime soon. Love does lasting wonders on everyone, little one. Azula gave her mom a bewildered look. Ugh, I think I'm the only normal one around here. I'm going to convince Dad to watch a horror movie with me. Chapter 5, Wrong Foot. A party? Zuko asks, giving Azula a suspicious eye glare. Normally, Zuko would not entertain such a conversation with his younger sister and continue to do whatever he's doing and ignore. A few minutes ago prior, he was using the new large flat-screen TV Dad installed. A new action series starring one of his favorite actresses, Kyoshi, was making her comeback after her hiatus on acting, and Zuko was thoroughly looking forward to binging it the rest of the evening. However, Azula knew his tactics and was purposefully standing in front of him, blocking the TV with both arms on her hip. Azula, Zuko growls, get out of the way. She rolls her eyes. Oh, please. Every sane person would have waited for this to be uploaded on that popular streaming service that everyone uses. I'm pretty sure Mom has it. I have the password. Resisting the urge to stand up and shove her out of the way, like he did when they were kids, Zuko takes a deep breath, a recommendation his uncle gave to him when he suspected him of having anger issues. He crosses his arms, partially to grip something, the rest for intimidation. Purah, I want to watch it now, not months later. Go pester someone else to hang out with. What about Mai and Ty Lee? Instantly, he regretted suggesting that. Mai and Ty Lee are the only friends Zuko was aware of from Azula, and frankly, the only ones he cared about. Going through elementary to high school together, the three had an unbreakable bond. Constantly, he would have to bang on their door to lower their giggles and gossip sessions whenever he was playing video games online or chatting with his friends. Eventually, He began to identify them both as more bearable sisters than Azula sometimes. However, in the last year of high school, Zuko recalled leaning on the kitchen counter, eating some chips, and reading a book when furious screaming was emerging from Azula's room. Abruptly, he stood up, big brother instincts kicking in, but was equally shocked to see Azula fuming down the stairs, while Mai and Ty Lee were racing after her. How could you two? Azula, please! It was the first time he's heard Mai speak other than a monotone voice. It was full of guilt and dejection. Please, calm down, Azula. Let's continue talking. We don't want this to ruin our friendship. We love and care for you so much, Ty Lee exclaims, her customary cheery smile wiped and replaced with an unfamiliar frown. Oh, no! Leave! Get out! I don't want to talk to you guys right now anytime soon, actually, Azula said, clenching her jaw, a vein protruding in her neck. Zuko chose not to intervene at the time, knowing that this was something between the three of them right now. Mai and Ty Lee gave each other a look before staring back at Azula, their gaze clouded with pain at her statement. Reluctantly, the two headed towards the door, unlocking it before closing it hushedly. Zuko watched Azula, who simply stood there for a couple of minutes, frozen in place. He got up, walked over to her, and hesitated before putting a hand on her shoulder. Azula flinched at the contact before turning at him, tears eagerly wanting to leak from her eyes. Oh, there were only rare occasions Zuko ever saw his sister cry. He didn't count the times when they were just children. The first time a boy dumped her in middle school, and the second time in high school, when she didn't place first in her cheerleading competition, detesting the judges for placing her team third. Of course, Zuko realized Azula cried frequently more than this behind his and their parents' backs. But seeing her in this state, what just unfolded of the three of them, made Zuko understand that this wasn't one of those silly fights, but a major event unfolded in their friendship. "Are you okay?" Choking back a sob, Azula scoffed, tears streaming down her face. "Do I look okay? God, how dense can you be? How could they? Here we are in my room, trying out the dresses we just bought for our prom, and Mai and Ty Lee decide that this is the perfect time to announce something important. So of course, here I am, thinking it was about their dates or the colleges they are going to, because they've been keeping me in the dark about it. I've noticed the two of them becoming more secretive to me, but I thought I was just becoming paranoid. I go, finally, took you two long enough. And they sit me down on my bed, launching into this sick, sweet, gushy speech on how they cherish me and love me so much. I tell them to just get on with it, stop trying to prolong it, and they reveal to me that the two of them are dating. Whoa! He was not expecting that. He knew Mai and Ty Lee were close, but that possibility never crossed his mind. Zuko rubs his sister's back, hating how she is shaking, crumbling in front of him over this. Azula always paints herself this image of being undefeatable. Seeing her this vulnerable reminds him how much of a softie she truly is. So, well, did they say anything else? I asked how long, she said, sniffling. They said since last year, but confessed having feelings toward each other ever since the start of high school. I can't. I shouldn't be mad at them, but was I always this oblivious? I feel like a part of me was always left in the dark about this. They chose to leave me in the dark about this. Did they think I was going to not understand them or reject them? I should be happy about how they finally came out to me, and I am happy for the two of them. Yet, I'm still upset that they didn't tell me right away. I would have always accepted them. Zuko watches Azula staggering with her words, clutching her cardigan harder, her hand constantly wiping snot away. He turns her to face him. Azula, your feelings on this are completely valid. I understand why you would be mad. I would be too. But Mai and Ty Lee would never try to intentionally hurt you. I'm sure they were in constant turmoil about this throughout the years. Whenever you're ready, Talk to them. Tell them how you properly feel. She sighs. I know. I will. But not yet. Zuko nods. An awkward silence fills their wide living room. He coughs. Down for some fast food? Oh, hell yes. I thought you'd never ask. I want at least 2 cheese fries, 3 cookies, and cream milkshakes. Maybe even a peanut butter one. And 2 cheeseburgers. The rest of the night he recalls Azula and him staying out, hopping to various different fast food chains, stopping at random goofy-looking shops to make fun of what it contains, and then driving around town to all their favorite places. Eventually, a week later, Azula informs him that she's scheduled a meeting with them at Mai's house. She fills him in how it was a giant, gross, tearful session that lasted hours. She asserts that she is done crying for the next year, if she can avoid it. She comments hating how puffy her eyes have gotten. He tells her he's glad that she feels better. He enjoys hearing her sharp comments again. But Zuko takes notice how Mai and Ty Lee are scarcely seen on the weekdays and weekends. Mentions of their name dwindle until eventually she no longer brings them up anymore at all. When Azula started college, she has a whole new clique, pretentious males and females, that Zuko is less than thrilled about. He evaluates Azula now, seeing the brew of emotions shadow her eyes. Even if they talked it through years ago, Zuko knows she is unable to approach them. Nah, I don't want to bother them. Besides, we need some brother and sister bonding time before our spring semester starts up soon. You really just need a ride, don't you? I overheard Dad complaining to Mom about your increasing demands for gas money. Exasperated, Azula throws her arms in the air. Yep, that's it. Are you happy now? Fine, go watch your stupid action movie. Kyoshi isn't even that pretty. Zuko smirks, loving it when Azula loses her cool demeanor. He grabs the remote, pushes a few buttons to record the first episode of the series, before standing up. Oh, all right, let me change my pants and we can go. Azula pauses in her steps, turns to him. He enjoys seeing her fight the grin on her face. Really? Yeah, but hurry up before I change your mind. Still somewhat annoyed you said that about Kyoshi. Zuko remembers why he hates parties. The foul smell of alcohol and drugs, people slurring and vomiting everywhere, along with the incoherent music blasting through the roof. He doesn't bother touching a liquid as he's driving Azula back. He spots Azula every now and then, hopelessly flirting with a guy then getting her groove on the dance floor. It is a cyclical thing that Zuko finds amusing. Hovering around the snack table in the kitchen is declared his spot, as he munches on sliced celery and carrots, waiting for his cue to leave, when someone broadcasts a dark-haired girl drops dead on the dance floor. Being consumed in his surroundings, Zuko fails to notice a girl trying to make her way behind him. He steps back, his back colliding into her face. He is able to hold his balance, but winces hearing a loud thump on the ground. Are you okay? Zuko asks urgently, holding his hand out for the girl. He notes how familiar she looks, that shade of almond brown hair and that length. In fact, it looks strikingly similar to the first time he introduced himself to Katara, that girl calling for him. She pinches the bridge of her nose. It is a twinge of red. Before she can acknowledge his hand, it is slapped away by a figure behind her. Dude, what did you do to my girlfriend? Zuko peers at the dark-skinned male, who bears a resemblance to one of the boys whom Katara was talking to in that gaming room. I accidentally bumped into her. I'm really sorry. What? He says, slurring his words together. Oh no, a drunk boyfriend. The worst type of opponent to deal with at a party. Didn't anyone ever tell you to watch where you're going, bud? Come on, man. Don't you have eyes? He jabs a finger in Zuko's chest. Zuko doesn't budge, raising an unimpressed eyebrow. Well, don't ya? His breath fans over his face. Geez, how many drinks did this guy have? Sokka, stop it. It really was a mistake, the girl says, finally regaining herself and standing up to swat her boyfriend's hand away. Sokka huffs. He hurt you, didn't he, Suki? Therefore I gotta fight him. So, he's an aggressive drunk. Suki purses her lips. Sokka, enough. Come on, or else I will call Katara and ensure she beats you to a pulp for getting this drunk while being out with me. Zuko widens his eyes. Hearing her name confirms everything he's assumed so far. He desperately wants to ask the relationship between the three of them all, but doesn't want to come off weird. Instead, he stiffly stands there, just watching and listening, feeling extremely out of place. Katara? Where? Sokka exclaims, holding his hands up in dorky karate poses. Ugh! If Katara is here, then I'll stop, but... Sokka turns back to Zuko with a glare. I'll remember your face, buddy. Until then, watch out. I'ma getcha. Zuko watches as Suki drags her boyfriend along to another destination in the room, while Zuko is left utterly confused and concerned about what just happened, and if this all ruins his friendship with Katara. He turns his back to the dance floor to see Azula no longer there. He glances back at the clock. It is past midnight. He doesn't enjoy driving out in the dark that much. Adding a drunk and happy Azula makes the idea less appetizing. He fights his way through the crowd to search for his sister and spots her red crop top mixed in with a group of girls. Azula, let's head... Zuko stops in his tracks, registering in his mind that Mai and Ty Lee are standing in front of him, but currently on either side of Azula, holding her up. Ty Lee is the first to break his stare, bursting in a wide, pearly smile. Zuko! Mai looks up from Azula. She grins. Hey there, stranger. It's been a while. Yeah, ... It definitely has been. Too long. I could even say I miss you guys, he says, walking over to the two of them. What happened to Azula? We found her throwing up in the bathroom. Nearly threw up on Mai before realizing it was us, and then began to cry at the sight of us. Ty Lee informs with a jolly smile, swinging Azula's arm over her neck. I was totally going to slap her if she ruined my favorite pair of jeans, and I wasn't going to be sorry about it, Mai says, replicating what Ty Lee did. Yeah, and I would have kicked your ass if you did, Azula adds, finally holding her head up. I'm going to go sleep over at their place. Did you know they're living in an apartment together? Zuko shakes his head. No, I didn't. Seems like you two have a lot of catching up to do. Azula smiles timidly. I know. I really miss them. I'll tell Mom and Dad. I'm sure they'll be happy to hear it. Mai and Ty Lee bend to rub their cheeks on Azula's face. We missed you just as much, if not more. As well as you, Zuko. You should come over before your semester starts with Azula for a movie night, just like old times. Sure, Zuko says. Actually, we should watch that series with Kyoshi in it. I think Ty Lee likes her. Oh my gosh, yes. I literally set up a whole countdown and pre-ordered the merch for the show. Mai smiles at her girlfriend, while Azula rolls her eyes. All right, you two can fangirl later. Can we grab those strawberry slushies at the gas station before we head to your place? Of course, Ty Lee says, happily skipping to the exit. Zuko waits until the three of them are in the car and safely onto the road. He waves back at Ty Lee, who is moving her arm so fast. He is afraid it will fly off, and Mai gives him another grin, while Azula flips him off. Nam, dite my sipung tatas. After explaining the good news to his parents that Azula is finally friends again with Ty Lee and Mai, he goes upstairs to shower off the stink of the party. He doesn't even have enough energy to get a few games in or check his emails. Rather, Zuko lays on his bed and contemplate when will be the next time he sees Katara. Chapter 6. Our First Kiss? On the last few days of winter break, Zuko hurriedly rechecks his spring schedule. He cringes in pain as he purchases all his necessary textbooks for the new semester, the price doubling of what he had to pay last year. Not to mention estimating other materials he will need to buy again, like stationery supplies. He sighs, murmuring a few prayers at his bank account, crying being emptying out so fast. Reviewing the rules and guidelines for all of his classes, Zuko clicks around to print it all, just in case he forgets anything but pauses, blinking twice as if he is imagining the error on his schedule. Instead of his physical well-being class, it is now replaced with physiology. He does not remember picking this class or even considering it. With the speed of Hermes, he goes back to his registration paper to check if there was an accident. Color leaves his face when his physical well-being class is nowhere in sight. What stands in its place is the physiology one. Did his counselor notify him and it didn't go through? Racing to his university's email, he searches up his advisor's name and is stunned that he missed all of his emails about the full class. Eventually, his advisor decided fuck it to his inactivity of responses and chose for him another health class. Zuko was brewing in half anger, half worry about the abrupt class change. He didn't blame his advisor. It was his fault for not checking his emails. But he had an average to maintain, and he didn't want to tank it, even if just slightly. Opening up another tab, he goes to the master list of all the classes at his university. He finds the physiology one. Okay, maybe he was overreacting. It wasn't entirely bad, but it had no correlation with his major, nor looked like an easy pass. Sighing once again and rubbing his eyes, he notices a buzzing erupting from his phone. Leaning over with his chair to check on the caller ID, Zuko is relieved to see it is his uncle. His odd words of reassurance may be of benefit to him right now. "Hey, Uncle," Zuko says, balancing the phone in his right shoulder. "How are you? How was your New Year's?" He listens to his uncle's end shift around, blowing intense wind through his phone. He winces at the sound and taps the sides of his phone to turn his volume down. "Ah, my lovely nephew. My New Year was good. I spent it with my son, who was able to get time off. It was a beautiful night watching the fireworks with him. Then the next day, I went to a party with that chess club I'm always talking to you about. Do you remember the White Lotus?" "Oh yeah, how are they? It's been ages since I last saw them," Zuko comments, getting up from his chair, not wanting to stare at his monitors any longer, reminding him of his new schedule. Why didn't he check his email again? Was he always this distracted? Zuko knew the answer already, flashes of her long brown hair dancing in his mind, but it was interrupted by his uncle's jovial voice. "They are all doing wonderful. Paku recently got married. Jeong is still teaching philosophy, as well as Bumi. The stories they tell of me about their students always makes me burst out laughing to the point I cannot breathe. I swear these men will be the death of me. Oh, and Piandao still takes up protégés for crafting. He reminded me that you are always welcome for a first free lesson, Eero states." Picking up a shirt hanging on the tip of his bed pillars, Zuko raises an eyebrow. "Wait, Paku got married? Isn't he older than you, Uncle?" "Oh, Zuko, there is no such thing as being too old to marry and find love. But I believe he is younger than me. It was a small reception, and I remember him dating her in our high school years. Paku has always loved Kana. Time has now finally willed them to marry. You must not judge, my dear nephew." "Right, no judging you grandpas." Zuko teases, throwing all his dirty clothes into his hamper and moving on to wiping the dust from his desk. No wonder he's been sneezing so often whenever he plays. There was practically a dust monster infecting his work surface. "How was your winter break and New Year's, Zuko? I called your father recently. He sounds well along with your mother. I was unable to talk to Azula. Tell her I said hi and would like to catch up with her soon." "It was good. Azula and I actually hung out and didn't rip each other's hair in rage, surprisingly. And Mom and Dad are well. We went on a few family outings, eating out at that one noodle place that you always took me to as a kid after daycare. I humored Mom and went antique shopping with her. I spotted a few vases you might like." Zuko pauses to catch his breath while sliding his hamper out of his room to ensure it gets clean by tomorrow. Yesterday night, we all sat down to watch a movie together as well. Dad has been in love with this new TV he got from his company. For New Year's, you know Mom hosted her yearly parties per usual. I was able to catch up with all the guys in our neighborhood again. Zuko finishes, throwing away the filthy towel. Ah, I am so happy to hear that, Iroh says before bursting out into a low laugh through his phone. Ursa gave me quite the earful for missing her yearly party and not bringing Lu Ten. Unfortunately, he came home late, and I could tell he was exhausted from driving. If you want, I can let you two talk after me. Sure, Zuko says, now moving on to his closet and rummaging at the bottom of it, collecting the numerous shirts that fell to the ground. He properly places them again on its respectful hangers. Oh, I nearly forgot why I called you again. I wanted to let you know I will be scheduling you as soon as you get back. Jin will be unable to come for the first month of this year due to her last year of high school, and Ji will only be able to do the early shifts. Are you okay to take the night shifts? Iroh asks. That works, actually. I'll be needing every single penny I can pinch with this upcoming semester. Just like the last one, it's not looking cheap. Like last year, the majority of my classes are early in the morning and end exactly at noon, so it works perfectly for me, Uncle. Thank you, my dear nephew. I appreciate it immensely. Oh, Lu Ten, come say hi to Zuko. 2 hours pass before Zuko hangs up the phone call with his uncle. Listening to him getting frustrated with his smartphone and Lu Ten having to instruct him on how to operate the camera was a treat. Eventually, Azula got annoyed by the noise and came over to his room to ask what was going on, and ended up joining in on the late conversation, laughing at Uncle's scraggly beard and gushing at Lu Ten. Zipping up his duffel bag filled with a fresh set of clothes, underwear, and other hygienic products to refill in the drawers at his uncle's house. Deciding to be a good brother because he can be a damn nice one whenever he feels like it, he makes his way over to Azula's room. Even though her door is wide open, he taps on the front wood of it, alerting her of his presence. Oinbasis. She turns, her laugh halting, and Zuko can't help but smile, seeing she is on a call with Mai and Ty Lee, whose faces are squashed together trying to share the screen. What do you want? Azula asks impatiently. I'm loading my stuff in the car for tomorrow. Got anything for me to add? Oh yeah, over there. She points at the corner of her room to her suitcase. Zuko nods, hauling his bag over his shoulder while grabbing the handle of hers to drag outside. After rearranging his trunk that is largely filled with Azula's contents, much to his annoyance, Zuko returns inside to inform his dad of the cost on his spring semester, then share some tea with his mom before heading back upstairs to do some gaming. He calls up his childhood friends, gaining their new phone numbers from the party, and talks with them one last time over a few intense games before drifting off to sleep. Zuko wanders around the large biology building, reciting off the physiology classroom's number off of his lips perfectly. He's only visited this part of the university in his early year for his prerequisites, but only remembered what he needed. This is the equivalent to a maze for him. Every other area of the school he has some sort of grasp on. But the health section? Find another student because he has literally no idea. Nah. Katara pops in his head, and he regrets never asking her number. She would have been a great guide. Nda. As if thinking about her is a charm for good luck, he spots the designated classroom instantly. He checks his watch. He was still 10 minutes early. No worries. Taking a deep sigh, Zuko pulls on the handle and walks in. Only a few pair of eyes land on him before the gazes return to their own conversations. He takes in all the empty chairs and heads over to one, but halts as he notices a familiar shade of coconut brown hair. Katara is sitting by herself in one of the desks nearest to the board, and he fights back a smile as he slowly approaches. She is occupied, engulfed in an intense reading session. Is there anyone sitting here? Katara looks up, completely caught off guard as his sudden voice makes her jump in her seat slightly. He smiles at it, marveling in how she can be so adorable. No, not it, Zuko! Hey, look at you. I can see you're already busy. Come on, the semester just started. Carefully placing her bookmark in the crack of her book before closing it, Katara scoots her seat a bit to make room for him to slide his way in to set his backpack beside hers. Ooh, trust me, higher-level biology classes are relentless. They don't care if it's the first day. But what are you doing here? I thought you were an engineering major. He scratches the back of his head, nervous chuckles escaping his lips. I still am. My advisor told me I had a free class and could take whatever. I ended up picking a physical wellness class, even confirmed it and everything, but apparently there must have been a glitch when I clicked off the tab, or the processing system was down because all the spots were full. I was a dumbass and didn't bother to check my email for a while, so he switched it to this class. I'm still shocked about it, honestly. She gives him a sympathetic look, her bottom lip protruding. It takes a great deal of effort for him to not focus on her mouth. That really sucks. I'm so sorry. I've never been in that situation before. I heard from friends who are fitness majors. They always complain about how physical therapy classes fill up fast. I don't know if this will help at all, but I'm really glad we're taking a class together, Katara says, flashing one of her grins that makes Zuko feel completely at ease. Yeah, I got one good thing out of it. Spending more time with you, Zuko murmurs to himself before widening his eyes at his bold confession. Did you say something, Zuko? She asks. Oh no, nothing at all, Zuko states, flustered, and turns down to his suddenly very interesting textbook. Their professor, Ju-Dee, walks in, states the generic introduction speech, does roll call, and allows each student being called to talk a bit about themselves. Zuko's brief lecture on himself is a mess. He says his name first, obviously, then rambles about his very few hobbies, and stumbles if he should reveal his job, but thinks too hard to where there is an awkward lapse of silence, making him abruptly sit back down. It is the opposite of Katara's. She is composed and confident, listing what she wants to do with her life. Become a doctor, as her mom was unable to, because she got pregnant young, and the types of clubs she's actively involved with. He can feel all eyes on her, admiration sparkling in them. It is when Zuko realizes he knows hardly anything about Katara, and he wishes to change that, but how? The next hour, Ju-Dee goes off her expectations of the class, how their assignment is already prepared online, and when the due date will be. Zuko writes that down on his calendar. He cannot help, but when 10 minutes have passed, steals glances at Katara within the corner of his eyes. She is the epitome of concentration. Watching Ju-Dee completely, her eyes only feverishly darting back to her notes to quickly write it down. Zuko could get lost in simply gawking at Katara's face. He accidentally stared too long, making Katara glimpse on him, shooting a quick smile. It was harmless, but Zuko felt the back of his neck burn at getting caught. Aye. As they're packing up their things, Zuko realizes the time. Oh, this was my last class, and I'm going to get lunch before heading to my uncle's shop. Want to grab a bite together? Sure, Katara says, grabbing her satchel. Actually, I made plans to eat with my friends today. It would be great if you joined too. Unless you're uncomfortable, which I would totally understand. Admittedly, my group of friends can get weird. Even I can't keep up with their shenanigans sometimes. But they're genuinely great people. Well, as long as they'll have me. I don't want to impose on anything. Zuko doesn't mind at all. He's happy being able to have an excuse to spend more time with Katara. He just hopes he doesn't make a fool of himself in front of her friends. Walking out of the building, Zuko decides to be bold. Oh, we've never really gotten the chance to get to know each other properly. And, since we're going to be seeing each other in class, not in that way. I figured we should, but only as long as you want to. Katara giggles after his long blubber of words. Maybe he should just refrain from speaking for today. That's a good idea. He listens as Katara rattles off autobiographical details, taking it all in. He cannot help but grin ear to ear when she launches into a story of how her parents met in their childhood and how they weren't the most financially stable at the beginning of their marriage, but now are. Clearly, Katara loves both of them dearly, but he has a hunch she has a soft spot toward her mom. She pauses, grinning sheepishly. Sorry, I always find myself rattling off to you. He wishes he would stop saying sorry. He craves for her words. No, that was fascinating. My parents were in a similar situation, actually. The two of them met through a large party as children. It continued like that until finally my dad asked my mom out for a dance. Must have went really well, because he questioned if she was willing to wait for his return after he studied abroad for college. Poof, after a few years, here I am, Zuko states. "Aw, that's adorable. I always think the type of love stories meeting as a child are enchanting. Meeting your true love." Katara wistfully sighs before jumping at a vibration emerging from the front pocket of her bag. It must be my friends wondering where I am. Yup, spamming me in our group chat. The two continue walking at a slow pace. He allows Katara to type out a message. While doing so, she brushes away a strand of hair back into her ear. Zuko twitches his fingers, just considering doing it for her, but who's he kidding? He's no Romeo in those cheesy rom-com films. Oh, let me grab your number. I read the syllabus and there's a project months from now. I think we should do that together. Zuko fumbles in his pocket to get his phone out and trades his device for hers. Carefully planting the digits and his name, he tries to hide his goofy smile. They said in their messages that they would be around here. Oh, there they are. Katara gestures her hand at a group clustered in a booth towards the corner of the food court. Immediately, various hands shoot to the sky, motioning her to move closer. Come on, Zuko. They don't bite. Let's go. He follows after Katara in a dash, easily dodging students carrying takeout bags, or the ones who are flying in with skateboards. Zuko is prepared to make a deal with a sun god, to fall into the cracks of the ground, or shrink himself into the rusty years-old gum. How could he forget bumping into Sokka and Suki into the party weeks ago? Instantly, Sokka, who was speaking the loudest out of them all, and yelling at Katara to hurry up so they could get food, goes still and stands up. You're that guy that hurt Suki. What are you doing here? I thought I'd told you to stay away. And get away from my sister. Ambushed by questions, Zuko winces at his tone. It is likely Sokka has forgotten the course of events afterwards of his girlfriend, assuring him it was an accident. But it didn't really matter. Katara is staring at the two of them, largely him, with a bewildered expression. Likewise, the rest of the members of her group are gawking. So much for first impressions. Luckily, Suki once again intervenes. She grabs a fistful of Sokka's collar from his shirt, firmly turning his face to stare directly into hers. Sokka, we talked about this. Stop being rude to Katara's friend because you were drunk and cut your hand, which is why I went to the kitchen sink to get a first aid kit for you. Now apologize to him and sit down. Sokka gulps. Yes, ma'am. He squeaks out before turning back to Zuko. Sorry, dude. I wasn't in the right mindset saying those stuff to you at the party and now. However, you didn't state why you're here with my sister. Sokka, what? You were drunk? I thought those stitches were because of something else, not due to a party. I cannot believe you spoke to Zuko like that. He's a friend of mine. We share the same health class this semester. Katara exclaims, launching into a spill of how irresponsible he is. Suki chimes in, agreeing with her points and then adding to it. Don't mind them. It's a constant thing in our group to harass Sokka. Smart guy, sometimes I think. Who knows? Anyway, I'm Toph, the petite black-haired girl says. He notices right away her long-sleeve shirt filled with faces of professional wrestlers on it. Did you see the boulder take that L last night? I felt so bad for him, Zuko states, shaking his head, remembering the mail getting slammed into the floor of the ring. Aw, dude, that was hilarious. He totally deserved it. He was talking mad shit to Hippo. Toph pipes. Zuko can feel a side of his lips tilt up. He got the feeling he could get along with Toph. She seemed laid back, but there was a dash of spunk. He positioned himself in front of the other male with a red beanie on. That's awesome hearing you like wrestling too. We're huge fans of it. Well, not Katara or Suki, but they put up with it. I'm Aang, by the way, a philosophy major. You? Zuko seats himself across from them, setting his backpack down in his lap. Engineering major. Really? My friend Teo is as well. He's currently president for the club. Maybe you've heard of him. It does sound familiar. He wouldn't happen to also be in the esports club, does he? Yeah, he's competing this week. I was planning on watching. You should come too. Zuko can't help but smile at how friendly Aang is. I'll have to check my work schedule, but definitely. Katara, Sokka, and Suki rejoin them shortly at the table. Zuko fights his blush when Katara squeezes into the booth and accidentally grazes her shoulder against his. Sokka nearly collapses into the booth, complaining at how harsh women can be, which starts another silly argument. Zuko doesn't contribute anything, but somehow he feels oddly involved. It could also potentially be Katara constantly giving him worried glances and whispering in his direction if he's all right. He is sure if she inches any closer, he might combust. Eventually, everyone breaks away to gather food. Zuko is delighted to see that they all are okay with sharing. There is all kind of variations in the group. Katara picking lo mein, Sokka with a burger and french fries, Suki with curry, Toph has a spicy chicken wrap accompanied with chips, and Aang has a large bowl of salad topped with fruits and petite vegetables. He nearly startles when Katara peeks her head over to Zuko, brushing his shoulder with hers. What you got? Nothing fancy, just some egg rolls and edamame fried brown rice. Oh, that looks delicious. May I have some? Katara asks, her chopsticks eager to grab at his container. Sure, Zuko says, pushing it forward. Gently, she picks at his rice and plops it into her mouth with a content smile. Big mistake, having egg rolls and not telling us sooner? Come on, Zuko, Sokka declares, leaning to get some. Sokka, you were mean to him 20 minutes ago, and now you expect him to give his food to your greedy ass? Suki says, baffled at her boyfriend. No, it's fine. Consider it a peace offering, Zuko says, handing him one. See, babe? Zuko gets it, Sokka says, crunching on the egg roll. Suki rolls her eyes. Pass that to me next, Toph cries out. Katara gestures her lo mein to him with her chopsticks. He grins and shrugs. Oh, why not? At her offer. Zuko nearly doubles over when she lends him her chopsticks. Suddenly, his palms are sweating holding the metal utensils in his hands, even though it doesn't mean much to Katara, or she has no idea this could technically be qualified as an indirect kiss. He feels dirty having such thoughts, but cannot help it. Clenching the metal sticks in his hands and shoving a chunk of noodles into his mouth, he nods to Katara, assuring her it's great. The rest of the lunch he sits there blissful, but not because of the meal. During work, Zuko cannot help but think of it even when his shift is well over, and his uncle's concerned looks. While he drifts off to sleep, he continues to reflect on his day, and that special moment to him, wanting to preserve that memory in his head as long as he can,